Welcome to episode 110 of the Maple Leafs Hot Stove Podcast. I'm Nick Ashbourne, joined as always by Anthony Petrielli. Once again, it feels like we're coming to you guys in a moment of general optimism and good feeling about the Leafs, which is funny because we're recording directly after them taking a massive loss to the Utah Mammoth. Um, that being said, and Anthony, you and I were talking about this before we started recording. Like, if you look through the headlines of the Leafs like game story for that game, like the word flush showed up in terms of just like flushing that game away. I don't know how many times because like that is how everyone feels about it. And to be honest, it makes a lot of sense for the second night of a back-to-back after you emptied the tank, emotional win against the Avalanche. You've got this upcoming game with the Golden Knights. Like it is a game you were designed to do poorly in, and maybe that's too much of excuse making, but it doesn't seem like a game we can take a lot away from.
About halfway through, pretty much right before, because he scored halfway through the period in the third, Austin Matthews scored against Colorado. That game was going, and I thought to myself, they better win tonight because, like, they're all in on this win. Like Matthews was very much engaged, which is what we want to see. We had talked previous episode, Jack Hughes comes in, hat trick in your house. Connor McDavid comes in, dominates you in your house. These are marquee matchups against marquee guys, and I feel as if a lot of them have gone the better of Matthews to this point, especially with the way that he generally played the first 35 games or so of the season. And I don't want to say that I don't want to misrepresent it and say he was massively better than Nathan McKinnon or anything that night. I wouldn't take it that far, but I thought Matthews was really good. You're not
I,
beating
I don't think
Colorado.
it's ludicrous to say he was better than McKinnon in that
I
game.
I'd probably give him the edge. I
Yeah,
wouldn't say
it
it
wasn't a it
was
wasn't a
no,
blowout. It wasn't like
no,
McKinnon shouldn't feel
Uh,
embarrassed about what happened, but
no,
like he
no.
was really, really
The
good.
the reason I love McKinnon is because he probably is embarrassed about what happens,
Oh, well,
and
yeah.
I'm terrified to play them again. But all that to say is when again they were knee deep in that game, and I thought to myself, Matthews is really giving it. Like, he's engaged in this one. He wants it in a big matchup against, the best team in the league right now. I thought Willie had his legs and was flying in that game. He just missed the handle on a few plays, sort of driving the net and things of that nature. But, if he was on the ice and Makar got the puck, he was actively engaged on him. He would turn it up. And that's what, again, you want to see that from your top guys. They have to take it a little personal. I felt that the Leafs top guys did that night. And halfway through that third, I went, please win this game because tomorrow's going to be a mess. And then Matthews took that penalty with, 2 minutes and 40 whatever seconds left. And I went, oh no. They they did all this just to end in that way. And for all the negatives will push about him at certain times. Simon Benoit saved a goal for me. That was Brock Nelson was scoring. That puck was in his wheelhouse. He was in tight. It was moving east west. There was nobody near him. If Benoit doesn't lay out and deflect that puck, Brock Nelson is scoring. I don't feel great about the Leafs odds to score with a minute left or whatever at that point. So big win. And then, yeah, I mean, you hate giving them excuses. And Craig Berube tried to toe the line as much as possible. And I get it. He was saying, I'm not going to talk too much about this loss because it kind of is what it is. I don't want to let them off the hook, but not only do you play a big game in Colorado, you've traveled multiple time zones. You're playing 10 o'clock at night. If you're watching that game on the East Coast and you're tired, imagine them, with the late flight, so on and
Overtime
so
game at
forth.
altitude.
Yeah,
Like
I
I'd like
mean,
to see the stats of not because there's like crazy numbers about teams losing in Colorado. Be interested in what their record is immediately after playing in Colorado too. I mean, it's rough
yeah,
physically.
and I would honestly bet that some of that is skewed anyways because Colorado's just been murdering teams. So, how many teams are getting to the third and the game is already over and they're thinking, all right, let's get ready for the next one. They've handed us our ass. And that was honestly that was the benefit. If you actually said to me laying out this road trip, what was the one game you'd want to lose? I would have picked the Utah game. Said you know what? Like, go head to head against the top team. Obviously, Vegas is its own thing. And then Winnipeg, who, you know, I'll just never personally like because they hate the Leafs clearly to an extent. And I just will obviously reciprocate that as a vindictive Italian guy. So, of the four games, that was the one kind of circled. Although I did think that Utah got a bit chippy at the end, and it's a shame that the Leafs don't play them again because I think a rested Leafs team would probably obliterate them if they played them again this year. But that's not going to happen.
And I think the Leafs are kind of fine on rivalries. I'm not sure the Utah Mammoth are going to emerge despite the Mateus Maccelli revenge angle. I still don't see them emerging as
Everyone hates the Leafs except for the Leafs and their fans.
pretty much. But, that's a reality that we've been living with for decades and decades here. Yeah, and that Colorado game is one that people are going to remember from this, from the season overall, right? Like, people are going to talk about things that happen and, who knows, maybe it all goes to hell from here, but it's a sort of quote unquote statement win that feels like it means more than some other ones. And it's not that they, dominate the Avalanche in their building, but like that's basically impossible to do. Like the best you can do is play with the Avalanche and come out on top. And that's what they did. And it could have gone a different way. Like I think Joseph Woll kept them in it at the very beginning. Like there's a world where Brock Nelson just buries a couple goals right away, and you just feel like, oh, we're in a hole here, and it just doesn't come together. Obviously, McKinnon had that chance in overtime that almost ended it. I thought after that, the McMann and Tavares on the rush together with McMahon basically just like waiting and having a sandwich before Tavares got there was pretty funny as an overtime moment. But like at the end of the day, Nylander, it's funny, there's some kind of not aggressive anti-Nylander talk, but a little bit when he was coming back into the lineup, like, oh, things are going so well. How does he fit? I think maybe it was the Kipper and Bourne
Yeah.
show. They floated the Patrick Ewing theory on Nylander's. Like, is he someone that you can be better without? Which like just didn't
No.
make sense to
No,
me.
they really can't.
And then he comes out and has like 5 points in his first two games and scores this overtime winner. And you're like, yeah, it is kind of fair that he's an
He's a
offensive engine for this group.
he was second in the NHL in goals last year.
Yeah.
He's had 40 plus 3 years running. He's a legitimate game breaker. He was up until probably the final three games of the playoffs last year, which is problematic to be clear. Actually, I'd say the final two. He was by far their best player, I thought. He was the only guy that was actually good in game five. I know that's a footnote. Like the team got their
Early in
ass
the
handed to
Florida
them.
series,
He,
too, he was fantastic. Like
the
he
bit
really felt like the guy they were afraid of on the other side.
the biggest the biggest thing that kind of flipped that series is Florida put Forsling on Willie, and he's playing with Tavares, who was laboring then and he's laboring now. I don't know at what point we want to get into that, but he does not look good. But to the Colorado game, because I think there's a few things in there. First off, I don't think I make excuses for the guys if they've thrown in a poor performance or anything of that nature. I think I call it. I think we both do. I think if if they win, but the process wasn't good or whatever the case is, I think we try to keep an even keel. That game against Colorado might be the worst track game I've ever seen. They were credited with two high danger chances at 5-on-5 all night. To wit, to wit,
Yeah, that
Bob,
was
Bobby
bad. And
McMann scored on a breakaway. One. Are we? I would imagine we count the high danger chance as a breakaway.
yeah, I think that's fair.
Matthews had a breakaway. You could say he fanned on it, but if Colorado didn't clear it off the line, it was going in the net. Like that is, if nothing else, it's an attempt. That's two. The two breakaways are two high danger chances. Laughton 2-on-1 off the bar. Matthews walks right in off the bar. Again, not shots. We're not talking about high danger shots. We're talking about high danger attempts. Right there. Two B-ways, two 2-on-1s. I have doubled the count of the official count. Nick Waugh takes a pass for Matthew Knies and walks right down the middle of the ice. Yes, he put it right in his glove. This is not an exercise in did he have a good shot on his attempt. It's to say he literally was right in the slot and ripped one and it was on net. Like that's five right there without thinking twice. I have no idea what happened on the tracking of that game. And then the larger point to that is because I think people will look at the numbers of that game. Like one of my friends, a Habs fan, texts me the next morning and goes, I see they won, but it looks like they got caved in. I was like, I don't think they got caved in. I didn't watch that game and think the Leafs are completely overmatched. They had some wins last year, including their win against Colorado last year in Toronto and their win in Edmonton last year, where Wall made that save at the buzzer against Corey Perry. Where I was like, they literally like they're getting speed bagged. But I didn't watch that game against Colorado thinking that at all. I was like, these are two teams that are going at it. The crowd is into it. There were Leaf fans in there. You could hear them chanting after Matthews scored. I thought both teams were just giving it, and it was a good back and forth. The Leafs were legitimately better than them in the second period, like straight up to
I
Jared.
mean, the first half of the second period was some of the best, maybe the best 10 minutes the Leafs have played all year when you think of the context of the opponent and the scenario they're in. Like they
Yeah,
were dominant in the first half of the second. And
yeah,
then, Colorado came back in the second half of the second period because like
yeah.
that's an incredible team and that's what they do. Like it was a massive swinging battle where there are moments where the Leafs were dominant, there are moments when the Avalanche were dominant, but it's hard to say it was as uneven as you said, some of those metrics where I saw a shot chart and it looked like someone blew a hole in the slot with a shotgun on the Leaf side of it. And I'm like, that's not what happened. Like that
No,
genuinely isn't what happened.
the first 5 minutes of that game were bad. Colorado
Oh,
came out on
100%.
fire, and Joseph Wall was unreal. He was
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even counting the garbage breakaway they got where it deflected off their own guy on a dump in and went right to the middle. Brock Nelson, two immediate grade A's. That can't
He could have
happen.
had Nelson
Yeah,
could have easily had a hat trick in that game.
he could have had a hat trick in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they got the power play, and I forget if we talked about this last week or if this was something I had in my head. Um, you probably won't remember either. You have so many different thoughts going at all times, and you're writing and you're talking and all this stuff. But we talk so much about the power play. It doesn't always have to score. It just has to be good and build momentum for you.
Well, it's just
And
not gonna, a good power play scores 30% of the time, like a
yeah,
real elite power play. So like it's
but
not gonna score every time,
but
but
their
it
first power
builds.
play against Colorado was like genuinely good. They should have scored on it.
Oh,
I
and both units too. Like
Yeah,
both units really had it going in that first chance.
Willie drove the net on a nice play off the rush entry. JT, it was a bouncing puck in the slot after McMann made a nice pull in and backhand, and the rebound dropped to him, which was great, but the puck was bouncing and he kind of had to just like baseball swing at it. But all that to say is, we talk a lot about the power play when it was struggling. Like it just hit a point where you're like, I don't even care if you score. Like you can't actively embarrass yourself, and it was, and it was demoralizing to the team. Troy Stetcher said it as much as he humanly could in a political way. Once the power play got hot, he kind of said, "Yeah, you feel it on the bench. We get the power play, and we just, you're not going to score." And now, even if they aren't scoring, I feel as if it's shifting games because they're just building momentum through their, you know, shot creation on it and how they're going about their business. And that Colorado, I thought, was a good example where I thought that power play actually kind of like it slowed the game down a little bit. It calmed things down, and it was like, all right, like we've got some chances here. We're making some plays and so on and so forth. So look, full marks to me for the Colorado win. There's always things you're going to nitpick. At some point, you have to just sit there and also admit Colorado's a really good team. Like, you're not just like blanking those guys. They're going to make some shit happen.
Especially in their building. Like, and
Yeah.
they have the like people don't really talk about the Avalanche altitude advantage. I feel like as much as they talk about with other Denver sports teams because a hockey arena,
Broncos. Yeah.
but like a hockey arena, it feels like this contained environment, but like it's not. It's still at the same altitude, and all those same effects apply. And we've seen them be incredible at home. And mentioning the power play, I thought in the second they, I felt pretty good about their chance of doing something again because that first one had looked so dangerous. And that is one thing that I would like to nitpick that I didn't like was them opening the power play with the first unit when those guys had been on the ice for a shitload of time already, just keep
Yeah, it
playing
was
keep away.
terrible.
Those guys were exhausted and it kind of just destroyed the power play. And this is a moment when the second unit has looked good for quite some time now. JT is on it now, which is something we should probably discuss because that's not a look that we've seen very often. And it just seems so obvious to throw out the second unit or, even take your time out there if you really want to. And that was a weird, I would call it a coaching quirk from an otherwise uplifting win for the Leafs.
Yeah, that was just a poor decision in real time. You could see that one. It's just going, okay. I mean, those guys shouldn't be out there. They looked dead. It was to the point where they were so exhausted that even though the power play was terrible, it wasn't an entire momentum zapper because everyone was just going, okay, let's get a breath and sort of reset and then get back at it. But
I think the
you
Maccelli
know,
shift was 2 minutes 40, which, as much as I'm pro Maccelli individual, that is not something that you ever want to see.
I find a lot of their forward group. We started talking about this last week, and I think it'll just kind of be an evolving it has to be an evolving topic between now and the end of the season. But in my mind, I keep going, who do I want on this team next season? And it's a tough question. Maccelli offer it's pretty easy to look at the lineup next season and be like, no Maccelli, I think. Right in your mind, I think that there's some natural biases that we all have, myself included, where you sit there and go, not physical, not fast, not great defensively, doesn't shoot. I mean, it's pretty easy to
Oh,
rhyme
they're
off a bunch of
the
negatives.
flaws are out there. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about the flaws this guy has.
But then I'm watching games and I'm going, he might be their best guy at power play entries. He's easily, I think, the most creative guy on the team at this rate. And pure creativity, not talent. That's obviously Nylander. But in terms of just create, he'll make a pass or two a night where I'm going, how did that happen? How did he see that? How was that even his idea? And we're watching from a zoomed out view on television or in the stands. And I'm sitting there still going, how did he put that thought process together? And he was good against Colorado. I thought he was really good against Colorado. I thought he was really good against Florida. I thought he was one of the best players against Florida. I know we talked about that last week as well. Like he's offering things, and strangely, I feel like Willie enjoys playing with him. I didn't see it before. That was a line that I laughed at in the summer, going, I don't know how you could possibly play those guys together. Are they gonna rock paper scissors who forechecks? But just the way they move the puck amongst each other, like there's genuine chemistry there. I don't know. He is in like a list of guys where I'm going. I think one thing, and then I watch them play, and I go, actually, he's good. Like, he should probably be here, and he's 25.
Yeah, I mean, he really interests me. He is fun to watch. And talking about biases, we're always probably going to be biased towards guys who are fun to watch to some extent because you're like, this person is bringing enjoyment, so they're good. The flaws that you mentioned are all there. Like he is a guy that can 100% upgrade on, at maybe not even for an exorbitant price. At the same time, free agency is not easy to shop in, and you end up getting over your skis with contracts that are really inefficient. I don't think he'd be super expensive at the end of the day. Depends what his point total is.
And
And
he's
you re
young.
Yeah, and he's young, which is not easy to come by for this team, youngish talent. And you referenced it before. I think there's a world where if Tavares is rolling right now, then that second line is actually putting in a ton of goals. Like right now, Tavares has really been struggling. A lot of those struggles have been on the power play. If you look at kind of his points per 60, like the big drop off is on the power play. It's not necessarily at 5-on-5.
He's
But when
booting the puck around on the power play. He went on the power play against Utah at one point on the top unit, and he gave it away 3 times in a minute. I was sitting there just begging someone to take him off the ice. It was like cleaned out on the face off. I was like, all right, well, you've lost the face off cleanly and led to a clear, so that's kind of strike one. And then it was like off the entry, he took like a wrist shot across the zone, basically. That was two, and then they got in, and then he booted it away again. It's going, what are we doing here?
it's been a pretty rough stretch for him, to be honest. He's got 4 goals and 13 assists in his last 25 games. Like that is a rough
And
stretch for a guy, especially a guy you expect to score, not just produce points.
I think
And
half of those goals were empty netters. One was a breakaway to make it 4-0 against Vancouver. Not great.
not a lot. So in a world where he is really producing, then I think the Maccelli Nylander combination looks even more potent, is putting more on the board. With him, like I don't know, my thought is that like, Olympic break, if he gets the rest and then he comes back and he doesn't look good, then it's a little bit of concern. But if he comes back and like has rest and he looks good, it's like, okay, this is just an old man problem where he's run into some condensed schedule and this kind of shit happens.
I have no doubt that he's going to come back from the Olympics and be good. And you'll talk about the struggles, and then you'll hear that comment a lot. People will be like, "We know why he's struggling. He's tired." Yeah, but okay, are we supposed to eat that for a month right now? Like, these are important games. This is a big stretch of hockey. Are we supposed to sit there and go, "Well, shit, gotta wait till after the Olympics. Just let JT, hang out until then." Like, these are big games. They're trying to win right now. They're gonna climb up the standings. And at the same time, I sit there and go, I don't know, can you actually trust Nick Waugh in that this is like a 40-point guy? JT playing terrible is still a better threat on a shift to shift basis.
Yeah, there's no one knocking on the door saying like, okay, I'm the second line center now. Like the gap between him and Waugh is such that there's not
Yeah.
really the only option they have strategically is to take him off power play one, which they've done.
Yeah, they had no choice. And so I was just kind of sitting there thinking to myself, do you do it anyway? It's like, as I stutter there 6 times over. Is JT gonna get better if you put him on the third line? If you say, you know what, let's, it's not about resting you. It's about changing up the matchups a little bit. Go play with Nick Robertson, maybe Cowan. You know, if Knies wants to keep playing like this, play with Knies too on the third line. You guys can be the third line. And is he not going to be a little bit better? Maybe get a little bit more ice time against, third pairing defenders and third and fourth lines and things of that nature? Because, I mean, JT is just laboring out there. And we're not sitting here trying to knock the guy. It's just the reality of what's happening. And this is a big stretch. Like, you can't just, that can't be a thing. And is he going to work his way out of it by just playing every other night in that 2C hole? Is that how that's going to play out?
I mean, I think that's what they're hoping is going to happen, and I don't think they're going to do anything about it. My overall theory of the case with Tavares has always been that it's sort of simple with him. Like he's as good as he is productive. He's not incredibly good defensively. They have used him on matchup lines before, like with Marner, a little bit of a different situation, but like he's not bringing a ton defensively. He's not a huge playmaker in terms of making guys around him better. He works hard on the boards. He wins puck battles. Sometimes he delivers those offensive zone turnovers. The face-offs are really good and they're important sometimes. But when you look at John Tavares at the end of the day, like you kind of look at the point sheet and you're like, what did you produce? Because your job is to produce. Like your job is not to take the toughest matchups. It's not to, and I know last season he did a lot of defensive zone work, like more than you've usually seen from him. But generally speaking, like at this point in your career, like your job, and I know he's getting paid differently, yada yada yada, but like your job is put the puck in the net or be a part of the puck getting into the net. And when that's not happening, like it's hard to say, oh, well, he's actually doing this other stuff. It's like, not really. He's not really doing that much other stuff. Not again, he's not necessarily killing you. He's not being brutal, although, that power play
I
you
kind of
reference,
think,
like he kind of maybe
oh
is,
yeah, he sewered that power play. That was
like he's if he but he when you're not productive, like when nothing happens, he is killing them because something has to happen. That's the bars. Like he needs to
yeah.
produce. It's like when Calle Yarncroke isn't producing, that doesn't necessarily hurt the team because that's not part of the team design where Yarncroke's got to put the puck in the net. Because if it was, the team would be absolutely fucked. But the team part of the team design is Tavares puts the puck in the net and he's around offensive production. And when it's not there, like as much as it feels too simplistic and caveman-y to be like, where are the points? But like it does feel with Tavares, it is a
No,
little bit of where are the points.
yeah, he's not hitting, he's not adding speed, he's not, taking tough matchups. He's not, like, it literally is like you got to produce. And as we talk about this, like, now I've talked myself into, I probably would flip Waugh and Tavares just to shake it up at this point. Um, I might give it another game against Vegas per se, but I'd be very, very close to that sort of, yeah, I think I like, this is not a thing that we can continue doing and accepting essentially and just praying that it changes. I think we might have to just sort of change the parameters in terms of what's happening. And the way Willie's skating, does it matter who centering him? He's a threat either way. Maccelli, he's a threat either way. Walk can work down low for them and go to the net. He's not as good as JT, but he'll go to spots that facilitate those guys and can make it work. Probably not long term, but for a week or two, and then hope JT kind of gets it going or even adds a better threat to the third line. I would probably trend that way. And then the other part is, we've seen this with a million guys. He should probably be transitioning to a winger. They don't have that. They're deep at center, but they're not. This guy on our third line should be the second line deep at
Yeah,
center.
there's no really valid replacement at this point, and
You
there's
know,
not one coming over the hill. They don't have some young guy who projects to be that either.
like I think of a guy like Joe Pavelski, right? He moved to the wing in his career at towards the end, and he profiles pretty similar to JT to me in the sense like elite hand-eye coordination, really strong on the puck, not particularly fast. Like he moved over and that was more than sufficient, right, towards the end of his career, and he was really good at Dallas. I mean, he could have continued playing in the league and like as a good player, not like the Patrick Marleau continued in the league, Pavelski would have been like good, like genuinely good, right? I mean, like Claude Giroux's doing it in Ottawa. Like you kind of go through the lit, like Matt Duchene at times has flipped over. I mean, most of those guys on Dallas, Jamie Benn, Tyler Sagan, like you kind of go through, and he looks to me of that ilk of ideally you do it. It's just hard to find a center. Hard to find a center where you're looking at JT going like, yeah, you play on the wing, so this guy can play center for you.
No, I mean,
It's very hard
and
to find.
those guys don't hit free agency. You have to develop them. They're at least have traded away all their draft picks. Everyone knows the story. Like, and I'm not saying that like Fraser Minton, for instance, would have been that guy. But realistically, there just isn't a pipeline for this. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out through
Maybe
the rest
Fraser
of his
Minton is that
contract.
guy one day. I don't think he's the guy right now if you're trying to be good in the
No.
playoffs.
And the problem here is also that as much as the Leafs have made this run, and unfortunately for them, simultaneously, so is everyone else in the Atlantic at the exact same
Yeah,
time.
Atlantic's the best division in the like let's just do the playoffs as the Atlantic.
Pretty wild stuff. But like they in a different world where they're a little bit more comfortable in a playoff spot, you could maybe, come up with a phantom injury for Tavares. You could sit him a couple or just sit him a game. You know what I mean? Like get him some rest. And I know
Where
they don't do
where's
that
where's
enough.
JT Cancun?
Yeah, give him, I don't know, throw a day-to-day label on him and, like figure out some game on the schedule that's not looking particularly intimidating. But as you mentioned, like these are huge games. The Leafs have put themselves in a much better spot to be in the playoffs. As we record, they are in a playoff spot, although they've got games in hand, so it's like a phantom playoff spot, but they're literally in the second wild card
Yeah, I
as
don't
we
think they are by
record.
points percentage though.
No, by like in the most literal like points sense.
The most literal is points percentage. That
Okay,
is the only
this is
way to look at the standings.
semantics. What I'm saying, what I'm saying is that they're like in a position where they're fighting, like they're very much fighting for it, as much as things have improved for them. And losing a game here or there could make the difference. Like any given game
It's
that they
huge.
they play
But,
could
but that's why
legitimately make the difference.
that's why you can't send JT to Cancun
Exactly.
for a
You
weekend.
can't
Like
afford it.
he's got to
And
play.
he's got to play. And yeah, and like I don't know, you make the case that you bring Nick Watt for a game or two, see what happens. Fine. Like
Does
but
it?
Tavares has to be good if he's 2C or 3C. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
you can get more of Nylander and Maccelli for a game or two with Waugh, but like Tavares just has to be better. And like again, that feels overly simplistic and that feels like a caveman take, but like he just has to be better.
Hilariously, in my mind, I thought, that's probably good they're going to Vegas. A little warm weather. Probably do his body some good, a little healing. Who doesn't like a little warm weather rip for a couple days in the dead of winter as Toronto's expected to get a storm coming up here just to kind of reset the body. And then you look on the flip side, you know, your favorite player, Bobby McMann, has been flying. He's been electric. And look, I understood why they pushed him to the fourth line because you want to keep the integrity of the Lawton checking line. And you can't do it with Cowan there. And you're sitting there saying Yarncroc is not one of our 12 best forwards, which is true. So if you're taking out Yarncroc, who are you putting on that fourth line? And you kind of go through, and it's like, well, it can't be Cowan if you want that to be a checking line. It can't be Nick Robertson. It can't be Max Domi. It can't be William Nylander. Can't be Matthias Maccelli. And so, by process of elimination, you're left with Matthew Knies and Bobby McMann. Those are your only two choices. And I get it. The line looked good with McMahon there. It looked better. We
Every
spent a
line
lot of
looks good
time.
with McMahon right now. Like there's not
Yeah,
a
because
single
he's
line that
good.
doesn't look good.
Because he's good at hockey. And so you sit there and go, yeah, I get it. But on the flip side, Knies has been more productive than McMahon, and it's hard to sit there and say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to put the guy with like 12 more points than you on the
Yeah,
fourth
and
line
Knies
so
is
you can play on the first line.
a bigger part of the like Knies is a big part of the future. He's locked in. He's the young like there's
Yeah,
complicating factors that go
yeah.
beyond just like how are you playing over the last 3 weeks.
So I get it, and I think it was a hard spot. No matter what you were going to do to put William Nylander back in the lineup, people were going to be upset. Like you were not going to please everyone with your lineup choices. If he had sat there and said, I am just going to put Cowan on the fourth line, it just wouldn't have made sense.
Well, I
Like I
think
saw, like no matter how you
Robertson
boil it, it was going to be weird.
Robertson being day to day, and we'll see what happens with him. Like that does make the lineup make more sense because like Robertson
Made
had
way more
been
sense.
good enough that you couldn't really scratch him necessarily, but Yarncroc again just slot him back in on the fourth line to do nothing. And as much as that sounds like a criticism, and it is, like it does make the shape of the lineup make more sense.
And then all that to say is that I fully understood it. I know people are going to be upset, and I was like, I get it. I'm not 100% saying that's what I would have done too, but I get his thought process. For one of the few times I actually sat there and when Ruby put these lines together, and it makes logical sense to me. And then 5 minutes into that game, I sat there and was like, please get Knies off this line. I can no longer watch it. Like 5 minutes in, it was like two bad dump ins, slow, just not forechecking or not getting to his spots on the forecheck, booting the puck around. And immediately I just sat and went, get this guy off the line. We can't watch this anymore. It's actually painful for me to watch it. He's just laboring around the ice to me. Like we talk about JT doing it. At least JT's 35. JT is 500 goals plus deep into laboring around the ice. Matthew Knies is 23 and he's laboring around. I don't want to keep bemoaning it. The offseason is going to be critical for him because that's going to be the time that he's going to correct it. And this happens for guys all the time. They fluctuate. They've got to find the right spot that works for them. But it's painful right now. Honestly, he looks slow. Like he's genuinely looks slow. And that's not a fit for that line and what's working for them right now. Like, for all things you want to say about Domi, he plays with pace. Like he can
Yeah,
skate.
there have been times this season where the first line has been, Knies, Matthews, Domi, which is a line that's intuitive. And it felt like the passenger on that line is not the like most bemoaned guy in the market who everyone says is an unmovable contract. The passenger is Matthew Knies, who's supposed to be the future of the forward core for this team. That's a pretty rough situation. And, I know Knies' point totals look good. And I actually think that his playmaking, like his passing, there have been some moments there this season that I'm not sure we would have seen last season. Like there legitimately have been.
Yeah.
But
His point totals are staving off what would be a notable amount of criticism.
yeah, but sometimes, and I think often, assist totals are kind of fake because like you're getting assists because you're on the right
Yeah.
line and you're taking shots and guys are banging in rebounds or it's your secondary assist. Like a lot of the time, some of the worst hockey analysis you see is that like a guy has a run where he gets a surprising amount of assists and then people are like, "Oh, this guy's sick." And you're like, "Okay,
Are they
is he
playing
though?"
a guy like that coming up, Nick? Can you think of a name?
That's a whole different segment. We're not skipping to that segment yet. But with Knies, I actually felt like I saw it, especially early in the season. Like I felt like I saw him making some, talk about Maccelli and creativity. Like I felt like I saw some creativity from Knies that was
Yeah.
interesting. But in terms of the step forward you expect from a guy of his age and talent, if that's the step forward, and then the step back is, as you said, skating, forechecking, score. Like I have one
Yeah.
positive to highlight, and then everything else I could highlight about his game, like I'd have to say, has been a negative or regression, and that's a really unfortunate thing to happen for a guy at his age and stage in his career. Like they again, like sounds simplistic, but this is another player that they need more from, and it feels weird that we're harping on these at things when it should be kind of a quote unquote positive time for the team. But when you look at things that have happened this year that help explain why, at the end of the day, the Leafs have not been as good as you'd hope they'd be, one of them is Knies has not taken a really prominent step up, and his overall impact on the game is not what the team would have hoped it would be.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. And then to circle back on Bobby, because I know you wanted to talk about it too, he's a pending UFA. And I think he's been one of their best forwards this year. I actually think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't believe he's been one of the best forwards this year. He's turning 30 this summer. This is effectively this is his second full season in the league. He's a late bloomer. The wheels are undeniable. They showed that stat. I think it was last night. He has the third highest recorded speed of anyone in the league this year. Not that not that I really need that to justify it. If you watch him, it takes 1 second to understand that he's an insanely fast player. Like the second he poked that puck in his own zone against Colorado, I was like, breakaway.
The goal he scored against the Avalanche, I'm like, you could flip the jerseys and tell me that McKinnon scored that goal.
Like
And
the
I'd be
sec,
like, yeah,
yeah,
that makes
this
sense.
the second he touched it, I was like, all right, here we go. My only question was whether he was going to score on it,
Yeah, like
but
he's not automatic to bury those chances,
no,
but he can create them.
no. Now he's shooting a little bit high for him. Like he's usually an 11, 12% guy, like high 11, 12. Mind you, he's barely played in the league. Um, he's at like 15.6%. He's a little bit hot right now, obviously. But I look at McMahon and say, it, you can do a million things with this guy. You can play him on all four lines. He was really good when they put together that Waugh, Joshua, McMahon, obviously, checking line. I like him right beside Matthews right now with his speed. We've loved him beside Nylander before with his speed. I think he's a pretty safe 20 goal guy. I'm happy to keep him. I'm also, and I'll extend this further because I know you'll want to add to it as well. I'd like to keep Laughton as well. I think he has a presence. He's obviously a high end penalty killer. I think he could play center and wing. I actually think they don't use him enough. We moan that a number of times. My thing with both guys though is I'm looking at both and saying like you're either signing right now or I'm trading you at the deadline. Like I'm not like we're not own rentaling this crap. Like they're on the bubble this year, Nick. Like you can't, and the market's not like there's not much competition. Both of those guys have dirt cheap contracts and are both good players. Like how many teams are looking saying like we don't want our penalty kill to be a lot better in the playoffs? How many teams are looking saying like we don't want speed and a guy that can score who's also 6'2"? Like every single team in the league is looking for guys like both of them. And that's why I'd like to keep them. But I think you have to put their feet to the fire and say like do you want to be part of this and like do you want to be here or am I moving you now? And that's actually how Scott Laughton signed his last contract in Philly, if you remember. Like he signed like right around the deadline. They were going to trade him. And to me, that's how you have to handle it. I'd like to keep both, but you've got to hammer that out like over the Olympics here.
Yeah, I think that I would like to keep both too. I'm interested in what the relative price tags are because Scott Lawton is, he's a center. Obviously, that has an immense value. He's also a way more accomplished player in the league than McMann is. Like McMann has less than 200 games played at the NHL level. Like I was digging through some sort of like guys, wingers who signed last year in free agency. Like, who can I compare McMann to? And it's really hard because he's got this highly unusual career path and he doesn't have a ton of production, right? Like his career high in points is 34. I think that he's someone who
But he
you
had
might be
20
able,
goals and he should hit 20 goals again this year.
for sure. I'm not trying to
Yeah,
say he's
yeah.
not a productive player, but I'm just saying like the facts are what the facts are there. And so I think his agent might have a bit of a difficult time presenting his case as being as valuable as he is because it's hard to say I'm going to point this other guy who's got a case like Bob McMahon who made a bunch of money and I had to make a bunch of money for a client. Like with McMahon, the case is this guy's really fast. He's really versatile. He can score. He can be physical. He is a
He's
winning.
big.
He's big. He's a winning player, and I believe he's a winning player, even though he did not have a good playoffs and he was injured for the previous playoffs. Whatever. I think that's a
He did
small.
he did set up that patch ready goal in game 6.
Yeah, I mean, again, for two series, I think you would have wanted to see him score, for instance.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. He got blanked. Got
Yeah,
skunked.
that's not good. But I don't think that's sort of an important strike against him. So when I look at McMahon, I see these characteristics, but I don't again see this massive track record, and that feels to me more likely to be something where you can get a value on the contract. And when I look at Lawton, I see like a longer career with a lot more accomplishments that's easier to, I think, bring out into the market and get something for. And I worry more about overpaying for Lawton than I worry about overpaying for McMahon. Because if McMahon reaches free agency, he will be an in-demand player, undoubtedly, for sure. Obviously, we talk about the Leafs being a high-profile franchise. Everyone watches this team; they know what McMahon does. He's a really good player. I don't think you're going to get him for pennies on the dollar, but when I just think of like the type of players that they are, the McMahon type of player, again, where just this unusual track feels more likely to result in a better value for the team. And yeah, I think now is a good time to explore those extensions. Your argument about you need to trade them if you don't extend them, I think intellectually that argument makes sense to me. I would be very surprised if that's what happens. It feels to
Yeah,
me
it's
like if they are close to the playoffs, they will not give up on the playoffs, even if their ultimate trajectory is going to the playoffs and getting caved in by a better team because they're at the bottom of the standings. I will say, the East isn't that scary. Like you could see them upsetting a high seeded team in the East. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but like I don't think it's impossible because this team, the East, is not full of juggernauts. But
no, it's not.
I'd be shocked if that's the way it played out, even though I understand
I
your argument.
I agree with you. I don't think that's how they'll handle it. I'm just telling you that's the coward's way out. Like that's what a coward does. If you believe in your program and you think you're building something here, the thing that makes me most upset about Montreal is they got all their guys to buy into taking less money. Like that Hudson contract is disgusting. There's just unacceptable that he signed that. From a personal standpoint, like what a dummy. That's like he left like 8 figures on the board, Nick. That's disgusting. What it like who are you kidding? And like last year they had Jake Evans. He was blacking out. He was having a year. I would have liked actually to have added Jake Evans because he would have been significantly cheaper than the guys they did end up getting. And they ultimately looked at him and said, like, you want to stay here? Like, you want to be part of our program? Like, this is what it is. Otherwise, we're going to trade you. And Jake Evans caved. And look, if these guys don't want to cave, it's fine. I don't begrudge anyone for wanting money. But I don't need to see them walk out the door when the Leafs have a third, a fifth, and a sixth round pick this year. And people are going to sit there and go, well, if you get them, you might make the playoffs. That's not how this should work. Like you're not in that territory. You
I
know,
think
this
those two players are important enough to the Leafs lineup that
for
like you
sure they
really
are.
are running up the white flag if you trade them. You're
A-
saying that like maybe we make the playoffs, maybe we don't,
Is
but we don't really care about making the playoffs.
is Joshua out for
What
the
do you
year?
mean?
Like, is
Well,
he done?
potentially. We don't know, but
Like
yeah.
Joshua, if Joshua's coming back, you don't even have to call up a forward to have 12 forwards.
I
12
mean,
veterans. Well, like 12 guys that have been with the team all year.
we were referencing the Patrick Ewing effect before.
I'm
Dakota
not saying that
Joshua.
they're I'm not saying that they're going to be better. They're obviously not. Like they lose McMann and Laughton, it's going to hurt them significantly if you take those guys off out of the lineup. That's going to hurt. Like there's no getting around that. I'm just saying like it's not like a piss poor lineup. If Scott Laughton was out tomorrow, I wouldn't be like, "Oh crap." I might sit there and go, "Oh crap, what's Berube going to do? Is Max Domi back to playing center?" But that part aside, I'm not looking at the forward group going, call up Jake Quill and see what he can do. Can you come in as a young kid and have a couple moments down the stretch? You know, you're 23, you have wheels, you're young, you'll be hungry to prove yourself. You won't be nearly as good on the penalty kill. And again, I'm not endorsing that. I would prefer those guys just sign and stay, but you can't be scared. Like
I
you
think
have to do the right thing. The right thing is to not sit on guys and watch them walk for free. They can't afford it. They don't. If they had their full complement of draft picks, I'd be like, who cares? They've got nothing. They don't even need to log into the draft. They can auto draft. It's 3 picks. The highest is a third. It's not even real. Like, I hope you could play this back 10 years from now and be like, that third round pick turned into a star. But it's highly unlikely.
that's
And
not
if
that's not been the pattern recently, that's for sure. They haven't been like the Red Wings of old, finding guys in Sweden in the fifth round.
and if you trade those guys and you get seconds, those are probably not going to be picks either. But you need lottery tickets at that point. Like you can't, are you drafting another Nick Robertson in the second round? Are you drafting another Matthew Knies in the second round? Hell, even Fraser Minton at this point. I don't know how you could justify walk. I say all this again with my hope being that you're looking at those guys saying, like, if you want it, like, let's make a deal. I'm not saying that they have to sign on a discount. The Leafs are flush with cap space. McMahon looked at me right now and said 4.5 times 3 years. Be like, done. Let's just all move on with our lives. Not even going to debate it with you. But if he's sitting there going, I'm milking every last penny, I want to see how it goes. I want to get to the offseason. I'm going, okay, well, good luck doing that from, I don't know, you're on LA, right? Like, you're looking at law, you're like, yeah, like, you're from here, your families are all here, you got the young kid, you're getting traded. You don't want to sign and be here right now? Like it's a business, Nick. Like this isn't just like fun, like let's all hold hands and like sing songs around the campfire. Like this is a business. Like you want to walk out, fine. Then we're gonna get something for you. I just because what? They're the second wild card spot. The Leafs are supposed to sit there and go, huh, can't trade anyone. Let's just watch guys walk for free or milk us for every last cent. Like you have leverage up until the trade deadline. Those guys don't
Yeah,
have trade protection.
and I also think that those guys both have reasons to want to be in Toronto specifically. For McMahon, it's the role he has now. Like his chance of getting money increases when he's playing alongside Austin Matthews on high lines. But also, this is the team that believed in him and brought him to the NHL through this path that has been unusual to get here. Again, I don't want to speculate too much because I don't know Bug Man. Maybe he's the greediest bastard alive, but I don't think so. In part because like that story that came out the other day about the grocery store worker that he had been sort of friends with and he wore his thing
Yeah.
because the guy died at an early age of 48 that they've highlighted. And, again, it's the sort of thing that suggests Bob McMahon's a good guy and maybe not that asshole. Who knows? Who knows the contents of these guys' characters?
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a
It seems
chance.
like he likes it. It seems like
Yeah.
Scott Laughton likes it. Both of them
Yeah.
seem genuine. I'm saying, great, let's make a deal. Put your money where your mouth is. You really like it here? We want to keep you. Like, we want to keep doing this. But if you don't
Lawton
want
is
to do that,
complicated because of the role, though. because I think Lawton likely sees himself as a third line player and maybe not necessarily this fourth line
And
specialist
that's
playing with
fair.
guys who don't score and logging all the penalty kill minutes. Like that's maybe not the future he envisions for himself.
That's fair. They've largely looked at him and said, eat shit.
Yeah.
And he's done it. But it kind of is what it is. Like, again, like you gotta be cutthroat. I don't think they have it in them. I'm sure that
Yeah,
they'll just ride it out and they'll go to. I'm just saying I wouldn't run it like that.
that's
I
just where I am. Is like I think it's so unlike what you're proposing makes sense to me. I just think it's so unlikely that they're going to play it that way that it's almost not worth contemplating. But like, yeah, I think that there's something very real about the idea that they should be realistic about where they stand, what the team is going to do this year, and how they can set themselves up for the future. If it looks like they're kind of headed for a brick wall, it's just, I don't think they think like that. I don't think
No,
that
they
they
don't.
operate like that.
No, they don't, and it's a poor way to operate. And again, I hope they just keep both and you know to reasonable deals. Knock on wood, and you kind of go about it that way. I can't. And then that and the flip side takes us to the defense because we did want to talk about Dougie Hamilton. I think before we talk about Dougie Hamilton, though, I just want to talk about the current defense that's here because I don't understand a single thing that they are doing with their pairings. Like none. Like I don't get it. I mean, McCabe Stetcher was legitimately pretty good together.
Yep.
They were up like 13-4 in their minutes. I know they weren't like dominating them by any stretch, but they were taking on tough minutes. They were treading water. You know, were a few things going their way? Yes. But did it look good and did it make sense? Also, yes. And now you're looking at Ekman Larson, who every single person, Berube himself included, been like, not that good on the right. Like he can do it, but it's not that good. I think we all know that. This is fact. This is not this is not subjective. This is just fact. We all know this. And then you get Carlo back. And so why the hell do you sit there and go, you know what? Let's put back this Riley pairing and pray to God that this time Carlo can just carry the water for
Let's pray
Mo.
to God that Carlo doesn't literally fall into Riley and wipe them both out.
I have a comment there, but I'm gonna keep it to myself. And then let's put Ekman Larson on his right side. Not only that, but let's have him do that against top players. I'm sure that'll end well. And then let's have Stetcher, who for weeks was leading their defensemen in time on ice. Like you'd look and it'd be hilarious. Like every night, it'd be like 25 minutes, 24 minutes. And you're like, you know what? Actually, let's put him on third pair with Simon Benoit. And that's the defense. Like I don't know how you round your like the forward situation. It didn't. Again, they moved McMann up and blah 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 blah. But I understood the logic. Like it made sense. The defense, I have no idea. What are we doing here, Nick? Like I don't like what's going on. How do you?
I don't think you can make anything particularly great with the group of players assembled, especially with Tanev out. Like that needs to be said, right? You have four left shot defensemen. You've got the issues associated with Riley. You've had Benoit, who's again, you referenced the saving that goal, and you could say that he's been better a little bit recently, but not having a fantastic season. Like, I don't know a version of this that is fantastic. At the same time, yeah, you look at these pairings and think like, what are each of these pairings good at? Like Riley, Carlo. Right now, kind of nothing, and that's not to say both players are shit and that there isn't a good play that they can do at a certain point. I don't know if it's going to happen together. McCabe, OEL, like,
I,
there's a little bit of imagination there. There's savvy. There's some, McCabe has been playing well, fair
if
enough.
look, if that was the second pairing and your top pairing was like a good top pairing, they would be fine. I wouldn't criticize it. But you're looking at McCabe OEL saying like be like a primary shutdown pairing. That's why it's dumb. Not because like they're bad players and they don't make sense overall ever in any scenario. It's because they're asking them to be a matchup shutdown pairing, and that doesn't make sense with OEL on the right side. I don't even want OEL in that matchup in general.
No, I mean, OEL on the right side, if anything, worked for a bit with Riley as sort of a relatively sheltered offensive pair. That makes more
I,
sense than McCabe OEL.
I could get behind that logic if they just said, you know what, we're going to run McCabe Carlo as the shutdown pair, and then we're going to have this offensive sheltered Riley Ekman Larson pairing, and then we're going to have Benoit Stetcher. I could get that. I don't know if it would work, but I could get that. But I think we're also all sitting here, and by all, I mean the Leafs management and coaching staff and everything. And they're working under this premise that Riley's a top four defenseman on this team. And I don't think he is. I think he's just like, I know everyone rips on him. I'm not trying to sit here and pile on, but I think like we got to be honest about it too. Like he's just a hazard right now. Like he goes out there and it's just a disaster. And I trust four guys there. We know who they are: McCabe, Ekman Larson, Carlo, and Stetcher, to consistently take more competent shifts than Riley. Like Riley might do something offensively, but I don't trust him anymore. Like that's completely wiped. Like you cannot trust him. Like that does not exist. Like you cannot get there anymore. And they got to start treating him like it.
I mean, I think a Riley Benoit line would be pretty
No, he's got
problematic
to
as
play
well.
with a righty. Like they like Benoit as well. Like these are two massive blind spots. Maybe the Riley one is they just don't want to admit it to themselves and or something to do with the money that he's making.
Well,
And
yeah,
Benoit is just a pure blind spot. But whatever, if it's Riley Myers, if it's Riley Benning, like he just it it's not gonna work the way that they have it. It's dumb on paper. It's dumb in reality. You know, I think McCabe's been awful these past few games. He got cooked by Nick Hash, which was particularly embarrassing because him and Nick Hash had a little back and forth skirmish off the puck, like a shift earlier, and then he got absolutely cooked by that exact same guy. That's tough. Like that as a competitor, like that's tough. And then he got torched on the tying goal again, like just weak on the wall. McKinnon's a horse. Like, I'm not saying it's easy, but he made it. He bad play against Utah, gave it away, goal. Like he's been bad, like just actively bad. I
but
trust McCabe to work himself out of it.
there's nothing for that, right? Like
No,
McCabe, they need to they just need him so badly, and they need him to be part of the solution against top players and in difficult situations that they have no recourse but to just keep running him out there and hope that things even out. Like there isn't even really like a role demotion that makes sense for
no,
McCabe.
no. It's just to say that you've paired him with Ekman Larson. It's been bad. He looks particularly bad. You're not gonna like that's not gonna work. Like that's not gonna be a thing. And then that roundabout brings us to Dougie Hamilton, who we know is available. Everybody knows he's available. He's making a ton of money, $9 million a year. He's 32 years old. He's not having a good year, production wise. And he signed for 2 more years. And I find this part the hardest part to talk about, which is like we don't know the off ice situation. Clearly, something is up with this guy because teams do not give away 6'5" right-handed defensemen that have a bomb and can produce. That doesn't, and
Generally
he
not.
like that's like basically impossible. And this'll what the next team will be his fifth,
Yep.
right? And all of those exits have been like get away from us. Like they're not like they haven't been. I went to free agency and I wanted to test it out or whatever. It was like Boston was like you're gone. Calgary, you're gone. Carolina, we have no interest. And now Jersey's like, we're healthy scratching you. Like, please go away. So I don't know what the deal is. What I would hope in that scenario is that Tree Living would know. You would like to think that he knows, given he had him. And he also traded him. So he might just be like, no, I've done this before. I have no interest in this. Now, the reason we're talking about it, though, is because objectively, I look at Hamilton and say, if you added him to the team right now, I think he walks in and is their best defenseman. Like I think the second he walks into that room, he's the best defenseman on the team because Chris Tanev's out. If Chris Tanev was here, I'd still say Chris Tanev's better. But in the absence of Chris Tanev, I think Hamilton walks in and he's the best defenseman.
I think you're projecting. I don't think this is unfair. I think you're projecting to some degree kind of like a change of scenery bump from him to be
100% he
that
would
guy.
have one, yeah. But like even
And
right now, he's been
but
bad.
that seems likely.
Yeah, I would wherever he goes, I would imagine he would be good at least till the end of this season. In the playoffs, it might be terrible, and the rest of the way, it might be terrible. But the rest of the regular season, I would imagine it'd be good. But even in this down year for him, he has 5 goals. Ekman Larson leads the Leafs defense with 7 goals. How much would you bet that Dougie Hamilton scores more goals than any Leafs defenseman this year? Not that goals is like the be all and end all, but I ultimately look at Hamilton and say like he can move the puck, he has a bomb, he would give the power play a different element, could effectively just finally take Riley off and no longer have that discussion whatsoever, which would be nice. They need a right-handed shot. All of these things, like in the on ice side of things, I like it makes sense to me. Like you could put
Oh,
together 3 pairings.
for if you're just talking about like insert hockey player onto
Yes,
team, it's a really strong fit. Like
on
it's
yeah,
undoubtedly a strong fit. Like he would make the team better in a noticeable way. Like I think there's a chance that he'd be a legitimate needle mover for the team. It's the contract, it's like you said, sort of to some degree questions about how he's gotten to this point. The contract really though, right? Like that's the thing for a guy who is getting older. You're talking about 9 million against the cap. I know that that is changing, but still, like the idea of you got to figure out how to even get him onto the team in the first place, and then you have to pay him in his age 33 and 34 seasons $9 million when this is a player who's getting scratched by a team that is not having a fantastic time right now. Um, it's hard. I get why he's so appealing to fans to think about again because on the purest level it makes sense. It's obviously just more complicated than that.
and the only other part of this all that makes sense is that he should cost essentially nothing in my mind.
Oh,
Like
100%.
people think I'm joking, but I would literally offer them Kelly Yarncroke. Like,
Yeah, because they want to get rid of him.
yeah, be like Stefan Nosen had significant injury. It's a right-handed forward for you. Sheldon knows Cali. He had a career high 20 with him. He's an NHL player. Like he's a dependable NHL guy. Helps your PK. Can move up and down your lineup. Not saying Yarncroke's good or anything. I'm just saying you're adding an NHL forward to your lineup who's on an expiring contract, and you're getting rid of your headache with Dougie Hamilton for basically scot free. Like you're not taking back a bad contract. Like there's no nonsense. Like it's just like you're cut and dry. You're basically getting out of it for free. Like you're gonna have to retain a little bit of money along the way. But like
Yeah,
people will say, "Oh, I would offer Stolars," and I'm like, I like Hildeby, but like, and I like the future of it, but
I'm also not sure how much people like Stolar's contract at the moment with him getting off to a bad start and then getting injured. I think they're not everyone would want to take on a Stolar's contract. I'm not saying it
yeah.
can't work, but like it's not a huge sweetener necessarily.
If you were telling me Stolars could come back in like a week or two, and you're adding like Dougie Hamilton for free essentially with a little bit of retention, it would be hard to convince me they're not making the playoffs at that rate.
Yeah,
And
I
and
mean,
maybe that's all it is. Like maybe Dougie Hamilton is not he's probably not a guy that's going to help you get through the playoffs. Like he's more of a guy that helps you get there than through. We've seen that dog and pony show. But I think people also sit here and kind of like realize now as we get through, like these seasons are long and they're hard, and you actually do need guys that just help you get there. He strikes me as one of those guys.
yeah, I could see it. I mean, again, I'm looking at the cap space right now. Puckpedia says basically 3.4 million. So, you got to get there. You've got
Well,
Yarncroke,
you're
that's
putting
2.1
like
million.
is Tanev on season ending LTIR? Is Joshua on season ending LTIR? If they are, then you're there.
That's fair.
It's
Yeah,
done.
because those guys are only on week to week IR at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So you end their season and you're adding him and then you kind of see how it goes and you kind of reassess everything on the defense in the off season. Like is Tanev like what's his deal? Like the rest of his career, like what's his deal? Like I don't know. You're finally shipping Riley at that point. Like so many things, right? I don't want to go down the rabbit hole entirely at that rate, but it's just and I guess the third part too, which we didn't really add, is I just find the Leafs have no assets. Like they're not adding anyone that you're like, yes, that's the move.
yeah, their asset is their ability to absorb whatever contracts they can absorb at a
Yes.
given time. Like
Yes.
that's essentially what happened with Joshua, and it hasn't really worked out. That's sort of what happened with Maccelli, even though it was like basically Utah didn't want him for what he would cost, and there was a third round pick, but that was partly about just kind of taking him onto the team. And when, as you said, they don't have assets unless you're trading Cowan, which is kind of what we would have said a year ago, and now it makes even less sense to
Yeah.
trade him. So
I don't want to trade Cowan. I don't want to trade Danford. I like unless you're executing for player swaps where you think you could maybe find someone who's a better fit kind of thing. This is the kind of stuff you're going to have to look at right now. Where you go like we objectively know that he is a good player. Like you could say whatever off ice. Like I don't think anyone's gonna actively sit there and be like, "This is a terrible hockey player." Like he's a legitimate right-handed top four defenseman in this league. And I also just like I kind of watch the Leafs and go, like they don't like not Hamilton's not a number one at this point. He probably was at certain points in his career. But you look up and down their division without Tanev, like the Leafs defense just looks terrible by comparison.
no, I think that I think the argument against walking down this path is this season, the 2025-2026 season, is one that's not looking fantastic for the Leafs. Things can change. Obviously, things have been going relatively well at this time. But we were just talking like minutes ago, we were talking about the idea that they might be shipping out their own UFA type players because it's just not worth it
Well,
to
I
keep
was
them.
saying I'm gonna do it. We know they're not gonna do it.
Okay. But like,
They
but
don't
we're
have the
talking about
stones.
that being a valid thing to believe is that they should do that. And so when you bring on Hamilton, like that move is more for the present than it is for the future. Because again, he's at a stage of his career where he is likely to decline rather than get better, just from an age perspective. And beyond 2025, 26, like he is someone whose contract is significant enough that he, to some degree, limits options in terms of what you're able to do. Like he makes things better today and arguably makes things, if not worse, at the very least, more complicated in the future.
For
So
sure.
that is arguably not the type of deal that this team is in a position to make. The flip side of that is, as you said, these type of players don't often become available for effectively nothing. And, there might be a value play here on a distressed asset. And there's always room for that discussion. But when you think about what is this deal, like it is kind of a deal for the present. And deals for the present are a little bit weird for the Leafs right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to make the playoffs. I think they have that right to do that. They're firmly in the mix. I don't want to see them pay up any sort of future or like you're not buying to me to add Hamilton. Like you're adding a player that helps you, but you're not really buying him, and I don't think it limits anything moving forward. And I think the UFA market's terrible. And so I'm like, yeah, I would have I talked myself into it a little bit? Yes, because at first I was like, absolutely not. I don't want anything to do with that guy. Then like the more I watch their defense and I think about it and I look at these pairings and the things that they're putting together and I'm going, this guy probably walks in again. He's probably their best defenseman the second he walks into the room. Does that make Matthews a little bit better? Does it make Willie a little bit better? He easily would have the best shot on their defense that they've had in a really long time, probably since McCabe, to be honest with you. And so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm sure they'll do none of that stuff. I'm sure they'll keep Tavares at 2C. I'm sure they'll walk both of those guys to free agency. But thank you for listening in the meantime.
Quick before we get out of here, it has been a relatively long show. I hope you don't mind. But I think we do have to mention the going to Vegas and playing Mitch Marner at all. We have not mentioned Marner too much over the last few weeks, few months, not much more than necessary. But I think the question is like when you watch this game, should there be a level of context of I'm watching to see if the guys get up for this game, it's important in that way where certain sometimes you have a game where they're coming off a brutal loss or it's a rivalry, whatever it is, where it's like this is a sort of circle on the calendar game. I want to see if the guys rise to this thing. Does playing Mitch in Vegas, I think playing Mitch at home, I think that counts, but does playing Mitch in Vegas count as that? Or is this kind of just a storyline we're seeing because for some reason there's a lot of one-on-one interviews with Mitch Marner going on and stories floating around that are pretty soft and pretty complimentary. And so there's just a little bit more exposure. And in terms of what's going to happen on the ice, it's not something that really matters.
I mean, it matters to me as a fan. I'm not expecting them to. I'm sure it's like any other game. I'm sure they're all going to say that. I wish they would come out with some fire. It would make them endearing to the fan base. I'm sure they won't do any of that stuff. They've never shown an inkling to do that in this era. I'm guessing it's probably not going to change heading into this one, or if you've listened to this after, then I'm sure it didn't happen. But I'd like to see it. Um, you know, I they had to answer questions because of things that Mitch said, and that would piss me off. Like above all else, like they might sit there and say like, yeah, like fans had it tough on Mitch and blah 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 and like all these things, but then like he did things where then he was gone and then players had to sit there and answer questions like, is it tough? How is it on your family? Like all these, Matthews eventually in preseason was like, all right, you guys got like one more week of asking me questions about Mitch. Then the team's like they're struggling early and everyone or a lot of people anyway, going like, yeah, they really miss Mitch. They stink without him. And like they got to sit there and take all that. Like I don't know, as a competitor or as like an individual, you don't sit there and like have a little bit of vitriol against the guy going like, I had to answer this crap because of you as people sat there and told us we stink, like, because you're not here anymore and we're falling apart. Like, how do you not have a chip on your shoulder? I'm sure they won't, but if it's me, I have a chip on my shoulder. That's just me.
I don't think you're going to see someone like go out of their way to absolutely light up Mitch Marner in the neutral zone or something. Although, if Jake McCabe or Simo Benwell wants to do it, like that is a way into a bunch of folks' hearts. So
Did they want
again,
their
if
jersey to sell?
yeah,
Like,
if you're listening and you want to endear yourself to the Leafs fan base, that is a suggestion you can take on board. The only player that I'm actually looking at is Matthews because Matthews, people said this season when he wasn't performing as well, and I never really bought this argument, but people said like, "Oh, Mitch is gone. Like he's not getting set up anymore. Like he's not getting the juicy chances that Mitch has created for him. Like maybe it's not a health thing. Maybe it's not a motivation thing. Like maybe he needs Mitch to be that guy." Like I never thought that argument was valid, but like Matthews had to hear that for sure. And am curious to see if you see him come out and have a really strong game. Like he can set the tone without, bashing anyone's face in, like the way he does, in Colorado at the beginning of that second period. Like I felt like he set the tone for the period
for
with the
sure.
way he was strong, the way he went to the net, the way he created chances early and showed like the Leafs were still in the game, even though they let the 1-0 lead slip.
Like,
I'd like to see if Matthews does that because maybe the whole Mitch thing doesn't mean much to certain Leafs, but if it's going to mean something to anyone, and unless there are guys who just hate him, like there's probably a couple guys in the room who just hate him, just realistically.
I mean, I'll
Um,
be watching and sitting there going, hey, is someone
see who it
taking
is,
a particular run at him?
but Matthews is the one that I'm curious about. That's the only one that like if Matthews comes out and has sort of like a truly timid, no goals, no assists, -2 game, that will feel a little bit disappointing in a way that I don't really care about how I don't know. I don't really care about how Nick Robertson, if he's playing in that game, shows up for the Mitch Marner and Vegas Open, or if how Riley does. I do find myself somewhat interested about the Matthews of it all.
I'm gonna be disappointed when they show these guys in warm-ups like dapping each other up and tapping each other on the shin pads, maybe even posing for a photo. Like, like I already know, like my expectations are insanely low for it. It's not for me. I don't like it. Yeah, I mean, I could say a
Hey,
million things about it. It's just that's not me. I'd sit there and I would take it personally. I'd be like, you quit on us. Like we could have had something here. You left a massive wake in your trail. We had to sit here and answer questions for you. We got criticized when you were gone. All this stuff. And then you gotta like sit there and now you're playing him and he's gonna come in with like a Vegas tan and be like, hey, how's it going? And like guys are gonna sit there and be like, hey, like just be friends about the whole thing. I just not for me, Nick. Not for me. To each their own. I'm not saying they should hate the guy or whatever. I'm just saying I'd have a little extra something for that game personally. I don't think they will. That's going to bother me. Inherently, that's going to bother me to my core. At minimum, I hope they win the game.
well, it might comfort you somewhat to know that, Vegas isn't quite home for Mitch yet, and he's still
Jesus
talking to
Christ.
people in Toronto and doing Zoom calls, and it's not so easy to settle in away from Toronto, and that it's still foremost in his heart. As a Leafs fan, and maybe that'll bring you some comfort.
Go Leafs, go.
All right, we'll end on that no comment from Anthony, not taking the bait. Admirable of you, I suppose. We really appreciate everyone who listens in. We appreciate it even more when you're leaving ratings, reviews, things like that. Help us grow the show, keep it healthy during this interesting time for the Toronto Maple Leafs, if nothing else. We'll be back with you again next week.